Hello, all, and thank you for joining us for the Sage Intacct demonstration hosted by Vision 33. For those of you who are familiar with me, my name is Michael Toporek. I am your Sage Intacct sales consultant here at Vision 33. We have Pierre Shields joining me today. He's our Sage Intacct solutions consultant. He will be walking us through our demonstration. Just so everybody is aware of our agenda for this afternoon, quick overview, 5 minutes from me, 40 minutes from Pierre, and then some time for your questions at the end. Before we move to the demonstration, I wanted to share a little bit of information about Vision 33. Selecting the right software is important, but the right partner is a difference maker for your business. So I am sure you have done your research on Sage Intacct and know it is a great product here at Vision 33. We do agree. But Sage Intacct without Vision is not the same. We like to say that Vision 33 is the key to unlocking the true value of Sage Intacct. So I wanted to mention some of the things that we bring to the table. Extensive support, industry experience, long-term partnerships, and we do focus on service excellence. We have many long-time customers who rely on our partnership to support their business and keep them going day by day. Ultimately, it's our consistency, reliability, and focus on excellent customer experiences to help you get the results that you need. And here are some of the customers under the Vision 33 umbrella that are running Sage Intacct. They come from all over the spectrum: non-for-profit, SaaS and tech, professional services, education, healthcare, franchising, energy, you name it. Some of these logos may stand right out at you. Again, most of you have done your initial research on Sage Intacct, but I did want to highlight just a few items. Intacct is an ideal solution for growing businesses. So Sage Intacct is an all-around native cloud-based platform. Intacct has built-in solutions tailored specifically for your industry. So do view this slide as an introduction into what you're going to be seeing in the demonstration in detail today. And you are going to be hearing two terms tossed around often. That's best in class and best of breed. What that means is we recognize that we are the best core financial and accounting solution, but there are other software that are the best at what they do. So we allow a seamless integration with these mission critical applications, for example, Salesforce and ADP, and this is referred to as best in class. We encourage you to use the best solutions available to you, which is really the opposite approach from other vendors in the marketplace who believe they have all of the best solutions for you under one umbrella for your organization, which is just likely untrue. So we have a full marketplace filled with these pre-built integrations, and this will give you the capability of automating many of your workflows and eliminating any error-prone processes that may exist at your organization today. Global reach, top company, recognized as a brand and a market leader. Now, global reach, local focus, this applies to Sage and Vision 33. We are one of the only global Sage partners operating out of the United States, the UK, and Canada. Our biggest customer footprint at Vision 33 is the non-for-profit space, where we have approximately 40% of our customer base, but our expertise in various verticals really help us to guide our customers down the right path with their implementations. So we are able to include various implementation types based on your needs. So with our vertical expertise, we can offer a quick start, rapid implementations with pre-built reports, dashboards for your industry and sector. Just due to our global reach, we've seen it all. For those of you who are interested in the underlying numbers, Sage Intacct is as secure as it gets. So you no longer need to worry about backups, downtime, costly upgrades. It just works all the time. It runs on AWS servers. It's encrypted at the highest level. So always have confidence with Sage Intacct. And when we talk about your results here at Vision 33, we are driven by your outcomes. So our team is focused on understanding your organizational goals and implementing the strong financial core in Sage Intacct. Now, many good partners, they will stop there. At Vision 33, we will go the extra mile with you. This is through our skilled consultants, industry knowledge, and our focus on the right analytics and intelligent automation and integrations. So you can effectively run with your preferred tools in a best of breed environment. Now, Saltbox is Vision 33's born in the cloud IPaaS solution integration platform as a service. So our Saltbox platform simplifies integrations and workflows with your current applications and business processes, enabling you to do more with Sage Intacct. So this is how you can fully leverage the power of the best of breed model for your organization. So if there is ever any integration you may want established that does not exist on the Sage marketplace, we can build it for you via Saltbox here at Vision 33. Lastly, meet Copilot. This is going to be your dedicated AI-powered productivity assistant. So think GL variant outlier detection, close process automation, AP bill automation with OCR technology. And down the line on the roadmap, you will have a financial management assistant that you can ask KPI questions to, etc. But at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Pierre, and he is going to walk us through our demonstration today.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, Nicole, for organizing this. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us in such large numbers. So today, the idea is to give you an overview of Sage Intacct to see if anything resonates with you so that we can move on to a discovery call where we're able to create a custom demo for you with your processes, your workflows, and things you'll recognize in there. What we're going to do today, I'm just going to share my screen very quickly. Very first thing I want to talk about. So over the years, what are the top requirements that have been asked of us in terms of functionalities and features? Very first thing that everybody wants is visibility. So we're going to take a look at how we get visibility in real time on our underlying data and transactions. We're going to look at how we do that without adding complexity. We're going to look at consolidation across entities just for a few seconds, very quick explanation. We're going to look at how we leverage automation. And we're going to look at how we close faster and better using AI and using our closed workspace. So very first thing I want to look at is dashboards. The instance that I'm using right here is a non-for-profit instance. So the dashboards, the reports, the fields, most of what's in here is built around the needs of non-for-profit businesses. When we install or when we implement an instance, if you are a project management business, if you're a professional service, if you're whatever you are, we have the reports and the dashboards custom built for your industry. What we like to do is make sure we have everything built around best practices so that when people come and log into the system for the first time, it's very, very intuitive and very easy to use. So for example, here we have all our dashboards. So I have a list of lists. So for example, the analysis view, we have a whole bunch of dashboards here we can look at. The dashboards are 100% customizable with zero coding. They're protected through robust security and roles and permissions and so on. Here's a compliance, for example, a bunch of compliance dashboards. Those are interesting for non-for-profits, dynamic allocation. The one I prefer, to be honest, is our role-based dashboards. So that when we open up our role-based dashboard, when your employee comes in the morning, opens up their dashboard, it's a one-stop shop. They should be able to see what their indicators are. They should see, are there any things that need to be addressed immediately? There should be a list of the tasks that need to be done or approvals that need to be done. It should all be in one place so that your employee is not moving all over the place to simply log into the system and get their work done. Very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to, here's a good example, compliance. Let's look at our compliance dashboard very, very quickly. So everything you see here is in real time, nothing static. We can drill down on every single number that's here to go look at the underlying transactions. And there's only one version of the truth, and that's what you're looking at right now. I'm going to go and look, let's go look at one of the role-based dashboards also. Here's what I like, the CFO dashboard. So in the dashboards, we have multiple components. The components up here on the top are called performance cards, which are our key performance indicators. Each one of these can be drilled down to the underlying transactions. And we can also filter with what we call dimensions. These are these over here. Actually, I'm going to remove these for now. And I'll click on apply, and you'll see my numbers will all refresh. And again, I'll show you how we create these filters without creating any complexity in the system. So we have our performance cards that are up here. For example, what's our revenue? We can compare our revenue to a period. So same time last year, previous month. It's uber flexible, or we can compare the numbers to a budget that we put into place. So there's our performance cards that are here that are our key performance indicators. These ones here are built on the financial accounts. But here's an example. Cost per hours of learning. That's not built on any kind of financial account, but It's built on what we call statistical accounts. So in Sage Intacct, you can use financial accounts and statistical accounts to create calculated fields that really give you an insight on the business. So for example, cost per hour of learning. In our accounts, we have the cost, but we don't have the hours. So we create a statistical account that's number of hours of learning that are updated regularly, and those are used to compute the fields that are here. They're also all the statistical accounts are also available in all of our reports and everywhere in the system. So you'll see here total revenue, cost per hour learning, total expenditures, everything, as I was saying, everything here is 100% customizable without a line of code. I want my cost per hour learning to be down here. Boom, there it is. Also, we can add any report in here and remove any report super easily with a couple of clicks. So we have our performance cards up here, which are our key performance indicators. We also have graphs. Everything can be drilled down to. We can go down to the underlying transactions. We have reports. We have also tasks and things that need to be done. So in this case, approving journal entries. Well, there's none to be approved, so they're not in this list. But if there were any, they would appear here. What's really interesting now is I have my total revenue for the entire business, but I'd like to have it for one particular department, for my counseling services. So I'll just click on apply. And now we'll see that everything's going to refresh itself and the numbers will reflect that reality. I could also combine with any other dimensions that I have in the system. In this case, I want to have my, oh, and I don't remember which one. Okay, I'm going to use my USA entity. We'll click on that. So now counseling services for my USA entity will give me these numbers. Now, when I drill down on any of these numbers, they'll be already pre-filtered by our fund and by our entity. Oh, and let me show you what drilling down looks like. So here, for example, we have expenditures, personal expenses, and so on. If I click on these over here, it'll just simply give me the definition of, for example, professional fees. Let's come here, personnel expenses. I come over here, click on that. It'll open up a little window. I can drill down on any of these to see the underlying transactions. And here we go. They're all right here. So very, very, very powerful for auditing, very powerful for what if scenarios, very, very powerful for any kind of analysis that needs to be done. Typically, analysis isn't done on your dashboard. Your dashboard is there to flag things that need to be addressed, and most of the analysis is done through the reports. Something I like a lot is, as I was saying, the role-based dashboards. For example, I have my AP manager. Let's see my AP manager dashboard. So my AP manager comes in the morning. They open up their dashboard. It tells them what they need to see. There's the vendor aging that's there. Oh, what tasks need to be done. Custom navigation. If they need to create a bill, they'll just click here and it brings them immediately to the appropriate feature and functionality. They won't have to go through all of the rigmarole of finding the menu and so on. Everything is in this one-stop shop. Something else that's interesting. Some industries will say, for example, we'll call vendors vendors, and other industries will call them suppliers. Every single label in the system can be modified, and it's configurable. There's no coding. It's done during implementation. So that when your employees come into the system for the very first time, they recognize the terms that are there. They'll recognize the workflows. There shouldn't be anything that's not clear. All right, something I'd like to show you is now reports. So remember I talked to you about dimensions? We'll look at reports quickly, and then we'll look at what the heck are these dimension things you're talking about. So I'll come to reports. I'll look at my financial reports. The system comes with a myriad of reports already implemented, depending on the type of industry we're implementing for, as I was mentioning previously. Any report that's here can be modified. And again, there's no coding. It's simple drag and drop, a couple of little clicks, everything's super simple. So I'm going to show you a couple of, the reports here, for example, can be generated in HTML format. If they're generated in HTML format, the recipient of the report or the user of the report, if they have access to the system, sorry, just a second. If they have access to the system, are able to drill down on any of the underlying data. For example, let's come here and I'll show you revenue and expenditures. Let's click on HTML. Oops. I'll put a date in of 01/01/20, and we'll click on OK here. I want to do 01/01/21, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so here this gives you an idea of what comes out. So we have our statement of revenue expenditures, and we have it broken down. These are the sites. So we have a main site, a Smithwick site, a Vance, and then this is all sites. What often happens is we'll show this to whoever in the boardroom, and they'll say, that's really interesting. Can I have columns by department? Well, yes. Tiny modification. Oh, and something it's important to say, once you create your reports, you're not having to recreate reports regularly. You're simply reusing the ones that you have created. So let's take a look at, well, actually, before I go into the report and give you the columns per department, the reports can be exported in a CSV format, PDF, or Excel, but those formats can't be drilled down into, obviously. We can also schedule reports that we want to have sent out to people that don't necessarily have access to the system. So every week, your salespeople can have, for example, what revenue they've generated and so on without having to log into the system. Very, very simple. And it's pushed towards them. So now let's take a look. We have a report that gives us the columns that are our sites. Let's go look at how complicated it is to modify a report so that our columns are departments. So again, this is not training. We're at 30,000 feet here. We're just taking a look at how easy it is to modify. So I want my columns. I'll click on columns. I'll come over here, click very quickly on the column I want to. Right now, the columns are sites. I don't want sites. I want departments. A couple of clicks. I'm going to come here too as well. Couple of clicks, and here we go. And now we'll refresh 010121. Oops. Let's preview it. Now what you'll notice is that the column headers are no longer sites, but they're departments. So in a couple of seconds, the same data that's underlying all of this can be represented through different views using the dimensions that are coded in the transactions. Now, again, super interesting. Oh, and I can drill down to any of these values, as I was saying before, if I want more information on where the values come from. Let's go click on any of these here. What is this credit about? Again, journal entry, I can go see right down to the underlying transaction. So very, very powerful. Now, what if I want to have, instead of having my departments as columns, can I put my departments as rows and simply have my sites as columns? Well, let's put our columns back as we had them before, or the same way we had them before. Okay. And this one here. And now if I want to have the rows broken down by department, I'll simply click on rows, come over here. I want this to be a summary, and I want to expand by dimension, department, click, 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 okay. And now let's preview. So now we see the sites are up on top here. The departments are under each one of our accounts. You'll notice here that the values we can't drill down to in this case. There are certain exceptions, but 99% of the time we can drill down to the underlying transactions. In this case, no. All right, so let's get out of here and we're going to go take a look at dimensions. All right, this is probably the quickest and easiest way to explain dimensions. So in traditional ERPs, we have our chart of accounts, but we also segment our chart of account when we want to be able to slice and dice our data to give us some business intelligence or to give us some business insight rather. So here we'll have a traditional ERP, so expense account marketing. If I want to be able to break down by location or by region, I have to add a segment to each one of the expense accounts that I'm creating now. So there's a different expense account for the marketing in the East and the West and Canada, the US, and so on. Now, if I wanted to also segment by project, well, I'd have to have as many accounts created as there are projects per location. So it just explodes quickly and gets a little bit out of control, very hard to maintain. And the time that your people are spending maintaining the system, they could be doing analysis. So Sage Intacct, what we decided to do is that we're not going to go with a segmented system. We use what we call dimensions. So we'll have one marketing expense account, and then we'll create as many dimensions as we need. And these dimensions can be seen as buckets of information that are used to pull out reports and to compile the information that's in our transactions. And I'll show you in a couple of seconds. The system, by default, the system comes with many, many, many dimensions. And again, these are, depending on the type of industry you are, you'll use them in certain ways or you'll use them in different ways. Again, my system, though, is used for lots of demos. So there's some things in the system here that don't come straight out of the box when you get the vanilla version, if you will. Let me show you my dimensions. So I'll show you the workflows for purchasing in this case, and I'll show you how dimensions are used in there. So I'm going to come to my purchasing, and let's go take a look at our overview. So this is the workflow for a typical purchasing process. We'll create a purchase requisition, create a purchase order, receive a shipment, maybe, or maybe we just create a receipt. and then we'll create a vendor invoice, and then we'll pay. So typically we'll go along this process, but there's different workflows for different types of businesses. For example, some businesses don't receive inventory, but they do have a receipt for pencils that they bought for office supplies, so non-inventory items, but so they still want to track it in a system to be able to do three-way matching. Well, our create a purchase requisition has all these different types of workflows here. So you can create a purchase requisition, create a check, you create a grant funding request, and so on. Depending on which workflow you choose here, there will be different workflows available to you downstream. So for example, once we create a purchase requisition, well, to create our purchase order, we can create a blanket purchase order, a regular purchase order with spend management, and so on and so on. And where we see this is here. So we'll have our quote with the different types of quotes, our orders with different types of orders, shipping, invoices, and so on. What I'd like to show you is I'm going to come here to an invoice and look at one of our vendor invoices. What's really interesting is every time a transaction is accomplished in Sage Intacct, there is traceability. So there's traceability in what the workflow was that led to this transaction. And there's also traceability for any kinds of approvals that happen. So there's a very, very robust and very flexible approval process for each one of our transactions. So here's the invoice I want to show you. So I'll click on view this invoice here. When we create a purchase order request, a quote, a purchase order, an invoice, whatever we create, if we're creating it from scratch, as soon as we put in our vendor here, the information in the header of the order is, of course, filled in automatically with the information that's in the vendor master record. So we'll get terms, we'll get preferred payment type, and so on and so on. Here we have, for example, the ship to address. We'll also have who the contacts are. So this gets filled out. And down here, when we created this invoice, we put in our products with our description, and these are our dimensions we were talking about. So I have a dimension called fund, and in there I have the USA fund. We also have a dimension called department. So in this case, I have a department, site, project or grant, and so on. So there are multiple dimensions that I can use to track my information. For example, for a grant, you'd want to, what is the name of the grant? What is the name of the fund? What is the project I'm working on? What is the location? What is the site? What's really neat is after I fill this in, I could come up here and see what is the posting details. So this will give me the posting details for any of the transaction. Of course, they're already there. And since we're at an invoice here, this invoice, before becoming an invoice, was a PO receipt. Before that, it was a PO, and before that was a purchase requisition. And we can see that right here in the transactions. So it went from a purchase requisition to a purchase order to a purchase receipt to a vendor invoice. Again, we don't want to click all over the place. If you want to look at what the underlying purchase requisition is, just click on it. Here we are. Here's the underlying purchase requisition. What's really cool too is when we can again look at our history. In this case, we have the history of the entire transaction because it's no longer just a purchase requisition. It's been turned into a vendor invoice. But we also have information on who the approvers were and what stage of the process approvals were happening. You can put an approval on purchase requisitions, on purchase orders, on PO receipts, on vendor invoices, on payments. Any part of the process can have an approval put to it. Now, what's really interesting, some of the automation that we were talking about really helps make things a lot faster. I'm going to click over here and show you a fun part of automation. For example, we've created our purchase request. Once that's approved, we turn it into a purchase order. Once that's approved, we turned it into a PO receipt because we're receiving the receipt of the employee that went to get the office supplies. Now we're waiting for the vendor to send us their invoice. Once their vendor sends us their invoice via email, here's where the automation happens. So let me show you this very quickly. Up here, there's a button that says upload. I can take the email or the vendor invoice that I've received and upload it through this button here, or I also have the choice to send it to an email address. And of course, every entity has its own email address. Every instance has its own email address. So once the invoice is sent to that email address, it will automatically be uploaded as an invoice in the system. And I'll show you how that looks. But if we're doing it manually, we click on upload. We select where we want the fund we want to put it in, and we click on browse files, and we go and add the invoice It could be a PNG, a TIFF, a GIF, an image, or it could be a PDF or a Word document. You can, of course, upload, there's a limit. You can upload 30 files at a time because there's a bit of a process that's gone through by the system when the upload happens. So through optical character recognition, the system will use AI to fill out the invoice in the system. But even better than that, it's going to learn. So I'll show you how that happens. So let's come here and I'll look for the ones that have been uploaded are here like this. Here's the one I want to look at. So here we have an invoice that was created through an upload. What we'll do first is I'm going to come down here and I'll show you what the upload looks like. So here's the invoice that was sent to us by the supplier. It's really big for some reason. I'm not sure why. Oh, it's probably my resolution. So this is the invoice. So the invoice, of course, has the supplier's name, their address, and so on. There's an invoice number. There's a PO number. There's a date. And down here, we have a description of the items that we're getting with their value. And that's it. So once that's put into the system, once that's uploaded, the system identifies the vendor and then fills out all of the vendor header information, as we were saying previously. And then what it's going to do is it's going to take that information we had in the email and it's going to create a line in this case. The first time you use the upload automated feature, the AI will fill in the amount of the transaction, will fill in the memo information, which is the description, and of course, we'll fill in the vendor, which we saw previously. The AI will not fill in the account and will not fill in the dimensions because it doesn't know where to code things yet. So when this invoice is created, it's created in draft mode. That's why you have to come into it and do some modifications. But we're shifting from doing to reviewing, which was much more efficient. So we come in here, we select the appropriate account for this type of purchase. We'll put in our different dimensions and we'll click on submit. And now the invoice has been created. But not only that, the AI in the system has learned how you want to code your transactions in the future. Something that's interesting also, you don't have to, we talked about in purchasing, well, I'm creating a purchase requisition that I turn into a purchase order that I turn into, and so on and so on. We can start anywhere here. If you don't have a purchase order or a purchase requisition and you're just going to invoice and you want to start there, well, you can start there. It's not a problem. What happens is the transaction you have just piggybacks on the standard workflow and starts where you start. Now we're going to talk about multi-entities. So a quick description, a quick definition. An entity represents a legally distinct company, division, subsidiary, branch, chapter, fund organization, or operating unit that requires its own books, but may also roll up into consolidated reportings. Typically, an entity has its own bank account, its own tax ID, and I'll show you what I mean by entities. Yeah, we don't have much room to see it, but okay. I'll move over here. So we have a top level object. I'm not going to call it entity because it's going to mix us up. We have a top level object called not for profit. Typically in the top level, this is where we create our general ledger accounts. We create our vendors. We create our clients. We'll create our items because typically all of those up there will be shared down below with the entities. We can decide where we share things. We can limit how we share them, who has access to them. Again, a very, very robust permission and visibility part to our system. So up here we have our top level object. This work initiatives is a fund in this case. It could be an entity, it could be YMCA Birmingham in this case. Let's scroll over here. So I have an entity called USA One, and it has multiple funds. So it has the Administrative Services Fund, Board Designated Reserve Fund, and so on and so on and so on. So each one of these is considered an entity. What's really neat, let's take a look here. These entities we're looking at also appear in our navigation screen. So without having to leave the system, right now I'm at the top level. Let me go to Interfaith Services and Learning. Simply click on it. Boom, it opens up a new browser window and it's available to us. Each entity can have its own currency. Each entity can have its own currency. And what's interesting also is you can create a budget to compare your consolidations to when you're reporting on your consolidation. So now you'll notice I'm in the Interfaith Services and Learning entity. So the only entity that it sees is itself. It doesn't see all of the other ones. Here, I'll go back up to the top level, which is my object that has visibility on everything. When we create multiple entities, the elimination transactions are automatically created for us so that when consolidation happens, it becomes completely automated. To run a consolidation couldn't be easier. Essentially, we click on, here we go, we select what book we want to use, we put the period in, we click here, I want to consolidate, and click on consolidate. And it's done within a couple of minutes. I'm not going to click on it because it does take a couple of minutes. And then, of course, you can pull out your reports to show you where the consolidation happened and what happened exactly. Now, I want to show you some stuff about automation. So we looked at accounts payable automation to be able to upload invoices, which is amazing and a real time saver. Another bit of automation that I'd like to show you is what we call the GL outliers. Just one moment, I'll show you that. This one is a slide because what the GL outlier does is over time, it learns how you code different accounts. So which combinations are normal, and it also knows what approximate amounts are normal. So in this case, it says, well, something was flagged as a GL outlier because there's an unusual combination of accounts, department, location, and amount. Okay, so we'll click on that. We'll go take a look. Is this really an outlier or is it not? Oh, it's an outlier. Oops, it's an error. We go in there and we fix it. Sometimes they're not. The outliers are not actual errors. For example, if I pay $1,000 a month for my rent, and suddenly my rent goes up to $5,000 for a month, it'll show up on my GL outlier report. So I'll go into my GL outlier report, see, oh no, 5,000, what's this? What's up with this? But I know that they're charging us 5,000 because they've done repairs or something along those lines. So this is normal. But now, instead of leaving it as is and having the auditors in 8 months ask me, what the heck is this transaction about, and not having remember anything, I make a note right here in the GL outlier report on that transaction saying, this is perfectly normal. The rent is 5,000 because of reason X, Y, Z. So your auditing goes much faster, is much cleaner, and is much more precise. And that is our fun little GL outlier. I'll remove this. Okay, so we saw the accounts payable automation where we're able to code a bill automatically and the system learns how to code it. There's also the accounts receivable automation. So we've automated customer communications, there's collections activity management, there's a portal for customer self-service, cash application management. It's much faster, more efficient, and we can do some forecasting and reporting. So again, the cash cycle time is much, much shorter. Bank feeds automation. Well, bank transactions are automatically imported and matched, turning reconciliation to a continuous process. That's something else we do in Sage Intacct. We have what we call the continuous close. So we're not waiting to the end of a period to close everything up. It's being closed as the period is moving along. So essentially, when you get to the end of the period, you're not so much doing, you're more reviewing, if you will. Static and dynamic allocations, these are great. Static allocations, I'll give you an example very quickly. I have that rent that's $1,000 a month. I want to split it between 4 departments that are under the same roof. I want them $250 a month a piece. So what I do is I create a static allocation where I will define how the rent gets split up, and then I will apply that static allocation every time rent goes through. So I'm not having to divide things up and so on. It will automatically be applied. Subledger reconciliation automation, it's happening as you're moving through your month's end period. And then we talked about the GL outlier. Get out of here and show you something else. So I come to the end of the period. I could use what's called the closed workspace, which is amazing. I'll show you in a couple of seconds, but I can also use AI to help me out. So my closed workspace. At the end of the period, for certain companies that are growing, we haven't quite figured out the entire process of how we want to close our month and what needs to be done first and so on. So this is the closed workspace is there to help us with that. So the closed workspace is a series of tasks that need to be done to close our month, of course, and they're in the appropriate order. So we'll have review bank reconciliations, close cash management, and so on. And you'll notice that again in the same idea that we don't want to be clicking all over the place to find out where we need to get our work done. The actual navigation links are here. So if I want to close my cash management, I simply click on close CM and that's what the interface pops up. Let me show you this one, review bank reconciliations. I don't think there are any. Oh, there might be one. There it is right there. So I could go and I could decide to reconcile, but I'm not going to in this case. But again, we have navigational links. What's really interesting also is that when we're closing the period, each task has an owner. So we know who needs to be doing what. There's also a start date and end date. We also define dependencies. So what tasks needs to be completed before another task can start. In this case, you can't close your cache until you've reviewed your bank reconciliation, which makes perfect sense. We also have the task state and whether things are on schedule or not. So this is an amazing tool to be able to define your end of period close process. But what's even more fun is this thing up here called the Copilot. So what I want to do is I'll do a new chat here. I want to run the close assistant. So I'm getting to the end of the period and I want to be able to know what I need to do. I'll click on run the close assistant. I have to define what period I want to run the close assistant for, and then it will start doing its analysis. So here, for example, we'll just go to random. I think 2025 has some good data, and we click on OK. So now the system's going to think a little bit and is going to check to make sure that to tell me what needs to be done, what hasn't been looked at. So we need to review unposted bills, prepare AP reconciliation, close AP, and so on. So everything is right there. What's even more fun, what's even more exciting with this is that the AI is learning. So the AI is applying best practices to create insights. So once this has been run, I'll click on Insights up here, and it's going to tell me, a variance was detected between the AP ledger and the general ledger in the United Kingdom instance. I'll click on View More. It'll give me exactly what's going on, and it'll let me know what I need to do. Below the 5 possible reasons for variances. So not only will it tell us something's wrong someplace, but will give us some cues towards resolving the problem. If this is still not clear enough and we need more help, we can come here to search help, which is AI enabled, and say, how do I close a period? What's interesting is this AI here is particularly trained on financial information. So if you ask it how to fix the shingles on your roof, it's not going to know. And also, this AI model belongs to the instance. We're not publishing any of your information. Everything is very private and very secure. So here's the information it's come up with. Some other things I'd like to show you here. Oh yeah, here we go. Sage University, fantastic for training, videos, documents, everything is there to really make your integration to the new system as painless as possible. And we also have our help on this page. So clicking on help on this page will give us information on everything that's right here, everything at your fingertips. Again, we don't want to spend all our time navigating everywhere. We want to spend our time doing or reviewing, if you will. So this gives you an overview of what Sage Intacct can do. And again, what's interesting is next steps. Usually what we like to have as a next step is a discovery call where we talk with you about your processes, your pain points, your workflows, your issues, what type of industry you're in, so that we can give you a demonstration or a demo with an instance that's built for you. So if you, for example, need inventory, well, we'll use the instance for the inventory. If you need to add project management, we'll show you that part. So we're not going all over the place. Hopefully, there's something resonated with you here today so that you will be wanting to have that discovery call. And with that, Michael, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Pierre. I want to thank everybody for joining us for the live Intacct demonstration hosted by Vision 33. And everybody enjoy the holiday weekend. Thank you all.